There comes a time in the story of nations when the wind howls against your door, not to invite you out but to push you down. Yet, my brothers and sisters, when the wind comes hard, it is not the moment to bow, it is the moment to plant your feet, lift your head and speak with the fire of your truth. Today we speak of why the United States has chosen to press its weight upon India, and why the threat of a 25% tariff from Mr. Trump is more than an economic move. It is a test of our dignity. When the lion roars at the young tiger, it is not because the cub is weak. It is because the cub is growing strong. The United States is not casting its shadow over India out of pity or casual dominance, but because it has begun to see what is rising on the horizon. The rise of India is no accident. It is the consequence of decades of persistence, of people who refuse to believe that the circumstances of yesterday must dictate the possibilities of tomorrow. Our industries, once considered fledgling, are now carving their presence into the global market with an elegance and a force that cannot be ignored. Our technology sector has birthed innovations that rival and sometimes surpass those in the West, creating not just software but systems of thought that bridge cultures and economy. Our scientists are not simply participants in the race of progress. They are setting the pace in areas from space exploration to sustainable energy. This is not the India that the world once patronized. This is an India that demands to be met as an equal. When a nation grows in this way, those accustomed to holding the highest place at the table often feel their chairs grow less secure. Power, like light, cannot be monopolized forever. It inevitably shifts, illuminating new corners of the world. For the United States, the sight of India standing tall, forming new trade alliances, and asserting its right to negotiate on its own terms, is not a comfortable vision. Comfort is found in predictability, in a world where the rules are set by a few, and followed by the many. But India no longer walks on that path. The steps we take now are deliberate, confident, and unafraid to tread into territories that once were deemed forbidden or beyond reach. The roar from across the ocean in the form of tariffs, trade restrictions, and political posturing is an admission of recognition. No nation threatens what it considers irrelevant. No leader spends energy trying to suppress what they believe will fade on its own. This pressure is the clearest signal that India has emerged from the margins into the center of the global stage. Yet recognition in the form of resistance is not a gift. It is a challenge. It demands from us not only the strength to withstand but the wisdom to advance. The world's balance of power is never static. History teaches us that those who rise must also learn to endure the resistance of those who feel their influence waning. The pressure we face today from the United States is not unlike the resistance faced by emerging powers in centuries past. A mix of intimidation and containment, designed to slow rather than stop, to weaken rather than destroy. But nations like people are tested not by their ease in times of calm, but by their resolve in times of pressure. This moment is a testament to how far we have come. We have moved from a position where decisions about our future were made in foreign capitals, to a place where our voice has the weight to disrupt, to shift, to demand respect. Our economic policies are no longer written with the ink of dependency, but with the pen of aspiration. Our growth is not simply a number on a chart. It is the visible, undeniable outcome of resilience that has outlasted colonization, poverty, and skepticism. When the lion roars, the young tiger does not tremble. It learns the tone of power and prepares its own voice. The sound from the west is loud now, but it is not the sound of inevitability. It is the sound of recognition that the tiger is no longer a cub. It walks with its own strength and the jungle knows it. The 25% tariff is not just a number scratched into the language of trade agreements. It is a calculated wall, a signal that says we fear the pace of your steps. Trade at its truest is the meeting of equals, each bringing their strengths to the table, each respecting the other's worth. But when equality begins to feel like competition and competition begins to threaten comfort, the rules shift. Those who once opened their markets now build barriers. not to protect the weak but to shield themselves from the strength they did not anticipate. In this, the United States' threat of heavy tariffs on Indian goods is not a random move. It is the shape that fear takes when it dresses itself in the respectable clothes of policy. Numbers on paper can be deceptive. To some, a 25% tariff may seem like a dry statistic in an economic debate, but in reality it is a ripple that moves outward, touching industries, livelihoods, and the rhythm of a nation's economy. It is a tool meant not merely to tax, but to discourage, to slow the wheels of progress, to make exporting less profitable, and to send a message that says we decide the pace at which you grow. This is not the voice of partnership. It is the echo of dominance that refuses to loosen its grip. Yet hidden in this action is a truth that cannot be ignored. No one invests such effort in suppressing what they consider insignificant. The United States has seen the figures, the expanding scope of Indian exports, the competitive prices, the growing quality that challenges established Western producers. They have watched as Indian industries from textiles to pharmaceuticals to IT services have not only matched their counterparts but in many cases undercut them in cost without sacrificing excellence. This is not charity, this is competition in its purest form, and competition makes the comfortable uneasy. Fear is an old player in the theater of global economics. It rarely shows itself naked, it cloaks itself in justifications, protecting domestic jobs, ensuring national security, balancing trade deficits. But beneath those layers lies a simpler, more human truth. The fear of losing ground, of watching another nation stand shoulder to shoulder, or perhaps one day, take the lead. That fear drives policies that speak of fairness but act as fences, and fences by their nature are not built for welcome but for control. For India, this tariff threat is more than a policy challenge, it is a moment of reckoning. We must decide whether to shrink in response or to adapt with the quiet strength of ingenuity. It calls for diversification, not relying too heavily on a single market, not allowing one country's economic mood to dictate our path. It demands that we strengthen our regional trade partnerships, deepen our ties with nations who see us not as a rival to restrain, but as a collaborator to uplift. We must also recognize that economic battles are rarely just about goods and services. They are about influence, leverage, and the power to set the rules. When we understand this, we see the tariff not as a punishment but as a signal flare, proof that our presence in the market has become impossible to ignore. The challenge then is to ensure that our momentum is not stalled by walls, but redirected into building bridges of our own making. Fear may dictate the actions of others, but it cannot be the compass by which we steer our nation's destiny. If a 25% tariff is meant to slow us, let it instead sharpen our resolve, push our industries toward greater innovation, and remind us that the most enduring victories are not those granted freely, but those earned in the face of resistance. When a storm cuts you off from the harbor, you either wait for the waves to calm, or you learn to build your own boats. The choice before India in the face of U.S. pressure and tariff threats is exactly this. Dependence has always been the silent chain that keeps nations from their full strength. For too long, the global order was built in a way where the powerful sold and the others bought, where those in command of trade routes and policies dictated the terms of growth. But every moment of pressure is also an invitation to create from within, to grow without leaning on hands that may one day push you away. Self-reliance is not isolation. It is empowerment. It is the ability to look at your people, your land, your industries, and say we have enough here to build what we need, and enough vision to build what the world needs. The threat of a 25% tariff from the United States may seem like a barrier, but in truth it can be the spark that drives India to invest deeper into its own capacity. This is the hour to strengthen the small businesses that weave our economic fabric, to equip farmers with tools that double their yields, to expand manufacturing so that the label "Made in India" is not just common but globally coveted. When you are forced to depend less on the markets of others, you discover the potential of your own. India's domestic market is vast, diverse, and growing at a pace that can sustain innovation if it is nurtured. Instead of bending under the weight of tariffs, we can channel resources into meeting the needs of our own billion-plus citizens, while also seeking partners who deal in respect, not control. The world is larger than any one economy. The more we diversify our trade relationships, the less power any single nation has to dictate our path. Self-reliance also demands investment in skills and education. To rely on ourselves means to prepare our people for the future, for industries that are emerging, for technologies that are reshaping how the world works. It means giving our youth not only the tools to work within India, but the skills to lead in global innovation. When knowledge is our greatest export, tariffs lose their sting, for ideas cannot be taxed or contained. The call to self-reliance is also a call to resilience. It is a reminder that external support is useful, but it must never become the foundation of our strength. A strong nation trades not because it must, but because it chooses. It engages in partnerships from a position of confidence, not desperation. For India, this means continuing to rise in sectors where we already lead, pharmaceuticals, IT, space research, while also daring to master areas where others assume we cannot compete. Pressure from powerful nations can make the unprepared falter, but it can also turn the determined into architects of their own destiny. We have the resources, the talent, and the history of enduring storms far greater than this. The key is to see beyond the immediate challenge and recognize the opportunity in disguise. The United States tariff threat, however heavy, does not have to be a wall. It can be the mirror in which we see the truth, that the most secure future is one we build with our own hands for our. This is not the first time a great power has tried to bend the will of India. History, like an old river, carries echoes of struggles we have endured before. From the days when foreign empires anchored their ships on our shores, to the years when our wealth was extracted under the guise of governance, the world has seen countless attempts to shape our destiny from beyond our borders. They came with armies, with taxes, with treaties that favored themselves and shackled us. They came with the belief that our land could be used, our people controlled, and our spirit broken. And yet here we stand, centuries later, not as a conquered people but as a nation that has learned how to rise, again and again. Every wave of pressure, every attempt to suppress our progress, has left behind lessons. The salt of the Dandi March taught us that even the smallest act of defiance can rattle an empire. The countless protests, strikes, and movements during our independence struggle showed that unity is stronger than any chain. These lessons are not relics of the past. They are living truths, relevant to every challenge we face today. The tariff threats from the United States may wear the suit of economic policy, but they carry the same underlying spirit as the pressures of the past. A desire to keep India within limits that benefit others more than ourselves. History also teaches us that powers who try to hold others down rarely succeed forever. The British Empire once seemed immovable, yet it crumbled before the quiet but relentless will of our people. Others came before them and left in similar fashion. The reason is simple. A nation whose roots run deep into the soil of resilience cannot be uprooted by force or fear. Our culture, our languages, our traditions have withstood waves of foreign influence without losing their essence. We have taken the best of what the world has offered and blended it into our own, but never at the cost of surrendering who we are. When we look at this moment through the lens of history, the U.S. tariff threat becomes less a looming disaster and more a familiar pattern. It is one more chapter in a long book where the plot repeats itself. A rising India meets resistance from those who prefer the old order to remain unchanged. But history's pattern also shows something else, that India, when pushed, does not retreat. It adapts, innovates, and advances until the very forces that tried to restrain it are forced to acknowledge its strength. We must remember that our past victories were not achieved in comfort. They were earned in times of scarcity, in moments when the odds were tilted against us. If we could resist when our resources were far fewer, we can certainly endure and overcome now. With the strength of a trillion-dollar economy, the innovation of our young minds, and the unity of a people who know what it means to fight for their future. Every tariff, every political maneuver against us, can be met with the same spirit that turned colonization into independence. The same willpower that endured centuries of exploitation can meet today's challenges head-on. Those who study history know one truth above all others. Nations like ours may be tested, slowed, even wounded, but they cannot be broken. We carry the memory of struggle like a torch, lighting the way forward no matter how dark the times. A nation divided is easy to pressure, but a nation united is a force no threat can break. The strength of India has never been in the hands of one leader or one institution alone. It has always rested in the will of its people to stand together when the moment demands it. In the face of a 25% tariff threat from the United States, it is not only our trade that is being tested but our unity as a nation. This is the hour when farmers in the fields, engineers in tech hubs, shopkeepers in bustling markets, and students in universities must recognize that they are all part of the same story. The challenge before us is not an isolated problem for one sector. It is a shared moment that will shape our collective future. When pressure comes from beyond our borders, division within becomes the easiest tool for others to exploit. They count on our internal disagreements, our political rivalries, our regional divides to weaken our ability to respond with strength. But history has shown that when India speaks as one voice, the world listens. The struggle for independence was not won by a single class, religion or region. It was won when millions set aside their differences and united for a common purpose. That same spirit must rise again, not through marches and protests this time, but through coordinated effort, innovation, and a refusal to bow to intimidation. Unity in this moment means understanding that the tariff threat is not only about economics. It is about respect, the right to negotiate as equals, to participate in global trade without being cornered into submission. If we allow ourselves to become divided, it becomes easier for external powers to dictate terms that suit them more than us. But when our business leaders, policymakers, and citizens stand aligned, we send a message that India is not a market to be manipulated, but a nation to be partnered with. Unity also means recognizing the value of every contributor to our economy. The farmer growing crops in Punjab is as vital to our resilience as the software developer in Bengaluru or the textile worker in Gujarat. When one sector is targeted by external policies, it is not just that sector that suffers, it is the entire nation that feels the ripple. And so we must respond in a way that strengthens all parts of our economy, ensuring that no community, no industry, is left to stand alone in the storm. The United States may see this tariff as a lever of influence, but that lever loses its power when the structure it is pushing against is solid. Our unity must be more than symbolic. It must translate into strategic action, supporting domestic industries, expanding our global trade network, and encouraging innovation so that our economy is less dependent on any single partner. When we are united, we are able to absorb shocks, adapt to changes, and continue forward with momentum that no single policy can stop. The world's perception of India has always shifted when we have shown unity in times of challenge. This moment is no different. It is an opportunity to remind the world and ourselves that our greatest power does not come from avoiding conflict, but from facing it together. Let others try to pressure us, let them raise their tariffs. When a billion hearts beat with the same determination, no force on earth can dictate the destiny of our nation.